It is so back. Texas and Texas A&M. We have waited over a decade for this, and now it is here. And it's here as an SEC game and one just dripping in postseason stakes. So here to help us break down the biggest game of this rivalry weekend from Horns 24/7, it's Chip Brown, and we have Carter Carrolls from Gig'em 24/7. And guys, it's been a while, so let's remind the people about this historic rivalry. We took a few years off, but this is the 119th meeting. Texas leads the series, won the last one back in 2011 when gas was, well, actually about 50 cents more expensive post-recession. Either way, it was a long time ago. That's usually how we declare that. But either way, the winner does face Georgia in Atlanta, so that's where we're going to start here. We know that both of these teams want to make a statement in the first matchup since 2011, but it's also a win and you're into the SEC championship game. So I want to know how these teams are feeling ahead of this one. Chip, start us off with the Longhorns.
Well, how many schools, true rivals, talk about each other in their fight songs like Texas and Texas A&M do? It's crazy that we've taken a 12-year hiatus. I mean, in that time, Justin Tucker goes from kicking the game winner over A&M in 2011 to becoming the best field goal kicker in the history of the NFL. But, A&M had the bonfire to, put a hex on Texas. Texas has the hex rally to put a hex on A&M. And now we get a winner take all for a berth in the SEC championship game. You could not have drawn this up any better. So I cannot wait. And I guess they've brought in some speakers even to amplify Kyle Field. It was pretty loud the last time I was there, Carter.
Yeah, they're bringing speakers on the sideline to pump in some more music. Not that Kyle Field need to be any more loud for this game. Wondering if it'll be the largest crowd in history. They've got to top the 110,000 mark that they had against Ole Miss in 2014. But this game would have been huge regardless of what the circumstance was. If these teams were 4-win teams, it would have been a big game. But for it to be an SEC championship game appearance on the line and a potential spot in the college football playoff, depending on how things shake out, you can't ask for bigger stakes than this. And, it's interesting. You hear from players on both teams. They don't even really remember the last game. I think I heard Texas players saying they don't even know who Justin Tucker is, which, wow, how old am I to hear that? But A&M players, a lot of them don't really remember, have any early memories of this rivalry. So they understand it now. I think maybe when this initially got announced of Texas joining the SEC, maybe they didn't, think much of it. But now they understand it. It's been the message all week that, hey, this game would have been big regardless, but for this to be on the line, man, you're talking about a crazy, crazy atmosphere come Saturday.
Yeah, I bet there's been some education on this rivalry in both buildings because I don't want to even think about how old some of these players were when this game was last played. Either way, it's back. We're excited about it. Let's talk about the matchups on the field, though. The A&M offense versus the Texas defense. Marcel Reed seems to be getting better, but Carter, where can this passing offense find success against a very stingy Texas secondary?
Yeah, it could be difficult with what Texas has been able to do. You talk about guys like Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron. Going to be difficult to have success against those guys. But this passing offense, it struggled for a lot of the year, but it started to pick up in recent weeks. Marcel Reed, you're seeing the development. You see the touchdown to Noah Thomas there, another guy who's really broken out in recent weeks. But Marcel Reed, when he first started playing, kind of a one-read quarterback, kind of a guy who would run a lot maybe when, the play was there. And now you're starting to see him go through his progressions more. You're seeing his accuracy begin to improve. He had some throws that he would have liked to have back early on in the season. So he's just a dynamic playmaker. And when you face a guy like Marcel Reed, you have to account for everything with him because he can beat you with his legs. He can now beat you with his arms. And he can make a lot of plays and escape sacks. Noah Thomas, a lot's going to be on him. This wide receiving core for A&M has struggled all season. But he's been the guy that if there's one wide receiver one on the team that could have a great game against Texas, it is Noah Thomas. Brings the 6'6" frame that can, come down with jump balls in the red zone. He can make big plays. We've seen a couple long touchdowns from him this season. And he's obviously the leading receiver. So those two guys will be one to watch for sure come this matchup.
Well, the Texas defense seems to be, peaking at the right time. The last two games, Texas has 12 sacks, 6 sacks in each game against Arkansas and Kentucky, and 20 tackles for loss in those two games. So Texas has been playing behind the line of scrimmage. They've not given up much in the run game, only 2 100-yard rushers all year. But this is a defense that has been the strength of this team the entire year, and you would not have believed that going into the year with Quinn Ewers as a third-year starting quarterback and all the firepower and explosiveness on the Texas offense. It's been the Texas defense, and they've held up against the run right there in the interior of that defensive line. Alfred Collins, the fifth-year senior, playing at an incredibly high level along with Jermaine Lole. Anthony Hill, a former Texas A&M commit at linebacker, left off the Butkus finalist list. That was discouraging news to his teammates. Anthony Hill, I think, will be excited to show everybody what he's got. And then that secondary, which has, the number 2 pass defense in all of college football. So they've got to play up to that level again. They call themselves the best defense in the nation. We'll see if they can deliver on Saturday night.
On the other side of things, this Texas offense, it kind of feels like Groundhog Day, having to ask about Quinn Ewers potentially dealing with an injury. So, Chip, I'm going to ask my question very broadly. How do you evaluate this Texas offense headed into Saturday?
Yeah, I think Quinn Ewers is definitely going to go on Saturday night. I'm told, he's practicing and they expect him to play against Texas A&M. He wouldn't have it any other way. He did walk on senior night last week, so he's a redshirt junior. But it does appear that he'll be heading off to the NFL after this season. Good news for the Texas offense is that the running game is picking up. Quintravian Wisner and Jaden Blue combined for a big rushing performance against the Kentucky defense, rushing for well over 200 yards. The final drive for Texas, 15 plays, all running plays, including a 1-yard touchdown run from Quintravian Wisner. So the running game couldn't be picking up at a better time. Obviously, when Quinn Ewers has time to throw, he's got explosive targets all over the place. They Bond, Matt Golden, his tight end Gunnar Helm, who's been a real go-to guy. So a balanced offense for Texas.
Yeah, and for Texas A&M, this is kind of the big question going into the matchup. This defense has struggled in November. Has been the big reason why they've dropped their games against South Carolina and Auburn. And, so many problems you could point to. I think number one would be tackling. The A&M, based off their grading system, they counted 31 missed tackles against South Carolina. Against Auburn, they had about 15 in that game. And, even in that South Carolina game, they didn't get 1 sack. But they probably, if they made, finished those sacks, they probably could have had like 5 or 6 in that game. It could have been a totally different game. And so they're getting pressure. They're getting their opportunities, but they're just not making the most of them. And then, in the back end on the defense, there's been busted coverages. There's been guys getting beat. There's been guys biting on play action. There's been a lot of reasons why they've given up. I think it's 6 of the last 8 games they've given up a 50-plus yard passing play. So they give up a lot of explosive plays. They struggle to tackle. And so they have the talent. You got Nick Scorton up front, who's projected to be a first-round pick. Jamar Stewart could also be a first-round pick. It just hasn't totally come together this year. But in a game like this, where maybe Quinn Ewers isn't 100%, and obviously this team is going to be motivated, they're going to be playing in front of a home crowd that will be raucous, maybe that can give them the edge to finish those sacks. And again, we're not talking about this defense just being straight up bad as far as not making any plays. They have the plays in them. They just can't finish and they can't wrap up. And so if they do a better job of that Saturday, you could see a much different result than we've seen the last few weeks.
Well, guys, we've waited a long time for this game, and we couldn't wait anymore, so we got a little sneak peek at it by simulating it on EA College Football 25. We ran 20 simulations, and they had Texas winning 15 times on the road. So for each team, let's start with the Longhorns here. Chip, what's the biggest key to pulling out a win in the real game on Saturday?
Well, this is a Texas team that has won 10 straight true road games. They are road warriors, and they need to play like it. They need to protect the football because when the Texas offense plays clean, and I'm talking not just turnover free, but penalty free, they've rolled this year because the Texas defense has held up its end of the bargain. The Texas defense with multiple forced turnovers in each of their last 6 games. So the Texas offense needs to take those forced turnovers, turn them into points, and stay away from the turnovers and the penalties. And I think Texas gets out of College Station with a win. If Texas turns it over, and they fumbled it 6 times last week against Kentucky, they only lost 2 of those fumbles. But they can't have the ball on the ground because that's the fastest way for this game to turn in A&M's favor.
And I think A&M, where they've been really good this year, is winning ugly. Running the ball, stopping the run, winning the turnover battle. That's kind of been the formula for them, winning 20-17. Those are the kind of games they like. And so I think the biggest key is really this defense. What's been the reason for their setback in November? It's been their defense. Their offense has been okay, good enough, but their defense has not played up to their potential. Can they finally do that? Can they play like they did against Arkansas, like they did against Missouri, the second half against LSU? Can they force 3 turnovers? Can they get 4 or 5 sacks against a really good offensive line? This defense is the key. And if they can, wreak havoc, get a lot of sacks, force a lot of turnovers, obviously that plays well when you're playing in front of your home crowd.
All I got to say is bring your earplugs. This should be a fun one. Thank you both so much for the great breakdowns. You can check out more of their work at the team sites. Horns 24/7 is the place to be for all things Texas, and Gig'em 24/7 is your spot for the best Texas A&M coverage.